Okay, good morning, everyone. So today, my name is Joydeep Paul. I am an assistant professor at the School of Life Science and Biotechnology at the Department of Biotechnology, Adams University. And this is my second session. And in the first session, we started talking about the classification of animal kingdom in that particular topic, which is actually the part of curriculum uh, for the first year students, BSc students, that is animal bioscience. And we started talking about the classification of, we started with classification of invertebrates, and we talked about why classification is important and how it is going to help us in our further studies and uh, basic classification scheme. Then we started talking about the first phylum or the most primitive animal, which is the class subkingdom Protozoa. So, and we talked about the general characteristics. Along with that, we talked about other, the classification system along and few of their examples. So in this session, we will continue with that and we will continue with the next phylum, that is phylum Porifera. So let me share my screen. Okay. So, okay. In this particular session, we will start with the phylum Porifera and then we'll, after finishing the phylum Porifera, then we'll move into the next phylum. Now, phylum Porifera constitute of sponges that are the most primitive of the multicellular animals. So from the phylum Porifera, we can say that the multicellular animal is being coming to the evolutionary process. Before that, all the protozoans are actually unicellular, but they lack organisms, but having well developed connective tissue. So basically, you can say that yes, in the evolutionary process from a unicellular animal, the multicellular animal started coming into the evolutionary ladder, but still there are no tissue or organ system present. In comparison to the other multicellular animals, the cells of sponges show a much higher degree of independence, resembling somewhat to a protozoan colony. The lack of conspicuous movement of the body of the sponges convinced ancient researchers or naturalists like Aristotle and other that sponges were plants. So basically, with the sponges, which are commonly being called for all the poriferans, so basically they have seen that there is no particular movement because they are mostly stuck with the base of the seawater or the water, and they somehow misinterpreted the ancient naturalists or the researchers or philosophers, that probably poriferans are like plants because they are not moving. But was much later, during 1975, the canal system in sponges discovered, and then the animal nature of the sponges were established. If we try to, talk about the word porifera, then word porifera originated from the Greek word poras, which means pore, and fore means to bear. That means we can say that poriferans or porifera are animals bearing pores. There are approximately 5,000 living sponge species are classified in the phylum Porifera, of which the most well known is Cycon species. Now, if we talk about the general characteristics before moving into the classification scheme, kingdom, definitely the first point, that is kingdom. Kingdom is Animalia. Second point, habitat, aquatic, mostly marine. Very few are terrestrial. Habit, they are solitary or they can also be present in the form of a colony. Complexity of organization, definitely cellular grade of organization. Shape, body shape is variable, mostly cylindrical in shape. So basically, you cannot actually find any symmetry, and they also belongs to the asymmetrical, group of animals, same as that of the protozoans. Symmetry, asymmetrical, or in few cases, you can actually find radial symmetry. Then germ layer, definitely diploblastic animals. The adult body wall consists of two layers, the outer dermal layer and the inner gastral layer. In between these two layers, there is a gelatinous and non-cellular mesoglia containing numerous free amoeboid cells. Coelom. Definitely coelom is absent. They are acoelomate, but there is a presence of body cavity which is known as spongocoel. And we already discussed in our first class what is a true coelom. A true coelom, which is actually being present in the triploblastic animal, where it is being completely surrounded from all sides by the mesoderm. Body covering. Surface of the body has numerous perforation called ostia, which is required for the entry of water, and a large pore at the apex called ossiculum, which is for the exit of water. So basically, you can say that in poriferans, through the minute pores which are, or minute and numerous pores which are present throughout their body surface, which is actually helping in the entry of the water, and the big large pore which is present at the apex, which is known as ossiculum, is actually helping in the exit of water. So this is the pathway of entry of water and then the exit of water, and the water comes inside the spongocoel carrying all the gaseous exchange product. Then for the feeding all different types of foods, and that kind of the gaseous exchange, the food exchange, or the intake of food, that actually all these things occurs inside the inside the in spongocoel, and then the water carrying the excretory products, and the carbon oxide, the gaseous exchange. After the gaseous exchange, all the remaining products, the water carrying all these things outside the body through the ossiculum. Then water canal system, which is definitely present, one of the most important characteristics of porifera. And as I already discussed, that after 1975, because of the presence of water canal system, people or researchers, they started recognizing porifera as a as an animal and not as a plant. Characteristic flagellated cells present called guanocyte cells lined the inner side of the body wall and are related with water canal system, helping in circulation and feeding. Endoskeleton can be either calcareous spicules made up of calcium carbonate, or siliceous spicules made up of silica, or spongin fibers, that is kind of a protein. Nutrition, holozoic, that means completely animal like. Digestion intracellular. Now you can actually see the changes in protozoan. It was actually inter in no, sorry, not in also in case of protozoans it's intracellular. Even in case of protozoan poriferans, it's also intracellular. But in case of poriferans, even the presence of multiple cells are present, but still it is not intercellular, because they still lack any organ or tissue system. And although multiple cells are present inside the protozoan, but you can actually see that all cells are actually very much independent in their function, and all the cells can actually perform all the functions. And that is why here also you can find that the digestion is intracellular. Nervous system absent. There is no nervous system. Circulatory system, definitely there is no circulatory system. Reproduction is asexual by budding or regeneration. Sexual reproduction is through gametic fusion. So you can also see that in poriferans also both the types of reproductions are still present. That means the asexual mode of reproduction and the sexual mode of reproduction. Fertilization is definitely internal. Now let us discuss about the basic classification scheme of the phylum Porifera. Now, phylum Porifera can be divided into three classes. The first class is Calcarea, second is Hexactinellida, and the third one is Demospongia. And all these classes again can be further subdivided into subclasses. So, class 1, let us start with the class 1, which is class Calcarea. Habitat exclusively marine, habit solitary or colonial in nature. Endoskeleton calcareous spicules composed of calcium carbonate. So basically that is why the name is being given, because the endoskeleton for this particular class is actually being made up of calcareous spicules, which is actually made up of calcium carbonate. Symmetry radially symmetrical, shape cylindrical in shape. Now, class Calcarea can be further subdivided into two subclasses. Subclass 1 Calcaronia spicules triaxon or three-rayed. One ray is larger than the others. Example is Cycon sp, commonly known as crown sponges. Subclass 2 Calcinia spicules trirate. All rays are equal. There is no one ray which is larger. There is no difference between the size of the rays. And definitely example of the subclass 2 or Calcinia is Clathrina species, which is also commonly known as Mediterranean sponge. Then moving on to the next class, which is Hexactinellida. Hexactinellida, the habitat is exclusively marine, deep sea, and we can actually find all these animals belongs to this particular class at the deep sea level. Habit solitary in nature. Endoskeleton six-rayed siliceous spicule. So basically, here the endoskeleton is made up of silica. Symmetry radially symmetrical. Shape cylindrical in shape. Now, hexactinellida class can be further subdivided into two subclasses. Subclass 1, hexa, hexaxt, hexastro, he- hexasterophora and amphidiscophora. Subclass 1 is hexaasterophora, and here spicules are smaller and with smooth pointed end. Example, Euplectella species, which is commonly known as Venus flower basket. Subclass 2 is Amphidiscophora, spicules comparatively larger, and both end of the spicule is provided with disc-like plates. Example, Hyalonema species. Now we move to the third class, which is Demospongia. Habitat mostly marine and some are freshwater. Endoskeleton are made up of siliceous spicules or spongin fibers or both at the time. So basically here in this particular class, you can see that the endoskeleton, like it definitely, there are multiple different species in this class. Different species can, so different animals which are actually being grouped under this class Demospongia. So few of them actually could have endoskeleton made up of silica, while the others have endoskeleton made up of spongin fibers, which is kind of an protein. The spicules are monoaxon or tetraaxon, but never six-rayed. Symmetry asymmetrical, shape irregular, canal system much more complicated than the other two groups. Spongocele is totally absent, and you can actually find out. So it's a you can actually find out that here the spongocele is there is no such single large body cavity. It's being completely separated into small networks. Uh, Class Demospongia can be further subdivided into two subclasses. First one is Tetraactinomorpha, spicules made up of siliceous type and not spongy in fiber, and tetraaxon types. Example, Cleona species. Cleona species can commonly be known as boring or sulfur sponge. Subclass 2, Serraactinomorpha. Serraactinomorpha is actually made up, the spicules are actually made up of spongine fibers and they are monoaxon type. Examples are Spongilla species, which are also commonly known as freshwater sponge. Okay, so this is in a nutshell about the phylum Porifera. Now, I want to add that definitely there are lots of books like Rupert Barnes or Kotpal, Invertebrate Biology by Kotpal. So there are lots of good books which you can actually follow. So whatever we are actually discussing over in these sessions are basically nutshell in a nutshell or a gist of the phylum. So basically, we are actually trying to look at the bigger picture of the evolutionary ladder, along with few important characteristic points and examples, and how the you know the evolution in different animals becomes complicated. So basically, we are trying to discuss that, but definitely, I will encourage all the students to you know consult or to read from uh, you know the books as I suggested, like Rupert Barnes for the invertebrate biology. For the vertebrate biology, we will be discussing later. Uh, you know, there are very good books like Cardong's vertebrate biology, which is being very popular among students. Also, Kotpal. So basically, you definitely need to consult all these books and to try to read more about these things so that you can actually get more of an idea and more of an, so basically you need to actually, uh, not only the single most important characteristics you need to learn, you definitely need to remember and need to understand and need to learn all the characteristic points. For that, you definitely need to consult the books. And definitely the examples along with their common names, because these are very important for any type of exams, and mostly for the job related exams, like government exams or all India entrance exams for higher studies. Different types of entrance exams are there, so definitely I will recommend to read more specifically in a more detailed way from these books. And you can also not only these two books, you can, all the books are very good, so you can definitely consult any other books. Okay, so basically moving on to the next phylum, which are which is phylum Nidaria. And if you could remember, you could actually see that from the starting from the phylum Nidaria, uh, the tissue or organ systems, they started coming into the evolutionary ladder. So these are the first phylum where you can actually find the tissue or organ system. Now let us start talking about phylum Nidaria. Phylum Nidaria, previously also known as Coelenterata, includes diverse animals like jellyfish, sea anemones, corals, and the most familiar Hydra. They are diploblastic enterozoan, and with tissue grade of organ system. The Cnidarians are characterized by the presence of cnidocytes, polyp, and medusa form. The word Cnidaria comes from the Greek word "cele" means hollow and enteron means gut. So they are actually having a hollow body gut. cavity. It's a kind of a gut-like cavity. The coelenterate body is a two-layered sac opening to the exterior by a single aperture called mouth. The mouth is surrounded by a number of tentacles and leads into the gastrovascular cavity or coelenteron. The body wall consists of two cellular layers, outer ectoderm and inner endoderm, and that is why it is being categorized as diploblastic animal. The phylum Nidaria contains about 10,000 described species, of which the most well known is Aurelia species or jellyfish, and also the corals on the seabed. Now, before moving into the detailed classification scheme, let us first talk about the or discuss about the general characteristics. The first, definitely the kingdom is Animalia, complexity of organization, metazoa with tissue grade of organization. Habitat, aquatic, mostly marines, few are freshwater forms, example, hydra. Habit, sedentary or free swimming, and definitely either can be colonial or in few cases you can find out solitary habit in or solitary in nature. Symmetry, radially symmetrical except sea anemone, which is bilaterally symmetrical. So now you can actually sense the change in the symmetry started evolving in the groups, and later the radially symmetrical animals are completely being replaced by the bilaterally symmetrical animals. Coelom, acylomate, germ layer, diploblastic, metazoans, nutrition exclusively carnivorous, no herbivore forms known so far. Life cycle exhibit polymorphism, which is one of the most unique feature in this particular phylum. So exhibit polymorphism, polyp medusa and blastostyle structures are formed, exhibit alteration of generation or metagenesis. So basically this is the event, or this is the one of the most one of the most important characteristic points which is actually being present exclusively in this particular phylum. Now uh, the polyp and the medusa forms, these are two different phases, like one is asexual mode of form and another is sexual mode of form, and you can in a single life cycle in the Cnidarian animals and the Cnidarian group of animals you can actually find out both the different mode of phases are actually present, and there is an alteration between them. In the polyp, from the polyp the medusas are being formed, and the medusas, they through the sexual mode of reproduction they start again produce the polyps, which again start forming new colonies. Next is individuals known as zooids. Body shape, anterior end of the body has hypostome on which mouth is present, surrounded by tentacles, but anus is absent. Possesses nematocysts or stinging organelles, serve the function of paralyzing the prey by injecting poison or to hold the prey, or used for adhesion. So there are lots of different functions for this stinging organ. Digestion, intracellular, extracellular, or both. So now there is a shift in the digestion process, and extracellular digestion started being introduced in the evolutionary process. Then reproduction, both sexual and asexual mode of reproduction. The sexual mode of reproduction is through budding. Now let us discuss the basic classification scheme of Cnidaria. The phylum Cnidaria can be further subdivided into classes: Hydrozoa, Scyphozoa, Cubozoa, and Anthozoa. First class is Hydrozoa. Hydra means water, zoo means animal. So basically all the animals in this particular class, their common habitat is water. Mostly marine, few are freshwater, some are solitary, and some are colonial. Asexual polyps are the dominant forms. Medusa possesses true velum. Mesoglia is simple but acellular. Examples: Hydra, Ovelia, Physalia, which is commonly known as Portuguese man of war. The next class is Scyphozoa, exclusively marine, solitary, free swimming. Medusa is dominant, or medusoid form is dominant, and it is large bell or umbrella shaped. Polyp is short lived or absent. Mesoglia is usually cellular. Example: Aurelia, which is commonly known as jellyfish. Class 3 or the next class is Cubozoa. Medusoid form with bell, body is flattened to form four sides. Bell margin simple, presence of velum along the margin of the medusa. Body wall possesses a type of nematocyst called stenotale. So there is a particular type of nematocyst which is being given a particular name, but the functions are very much similar that we already discussed, like protection or feeding or adhering to the host body, whatever is needed. Examples: Tripedalia species. The fourth or the last class is Anthozoa. So in Anthozoa, anthos means flower and zoa means flower like animals. So basically zoo means animals and antho means flower. So basically they are having a shape of flower like animals, and you can actually guess the example from this particular class. So basically let us first discuss the common characteristic points or general characteristic points of this class. They are exclusively marine, solitary or colonial. Medusa stage is absent. Mesoglia contains fibrous connective tissue and amoeboid cells. Class Anthozoa can be further subdivided into two subclasses. Subclass 1 is Octocorellia and second one is Hexacorellia. Now, Octocorellia, polyp, the general characteristic points are polyp with 8 tentacles and 8 septa. Octa, definitely, it belongs to 8. Septa also, or you can say that, like, presence of 8 mesenteries or 8 septa mesenteries. Tentacles are primarily branched. Examples: Gorgonia species, which is commonly known as sea fan. Penatula species, commonly known as sea pen. Alkyonium species, known as dead man's finger. Tubipora species, known as organ pipe coral, and Corallium species known as red coral. Subclass 2, Hexacorallia, polyps with more than 8 tentacles and septa, typically in cycles of 12. Tentacles are hollow and unbranched. Examples: Metridium species, which is commonly known as sea anemone, Fungia species known as mushroom coral, and Astrea species known as star coral. So definitely I will suggest all the students to also remember the common names, because these are very popular questions, or very the type of popular topics from which you can actually find out lots of MCQ questions. And now if you could remember actually these things for long, it will definitely going to help in your in cracking all the you know all India exams or uh, you know government exams or all India entrance exams for the higher studies. Okay. Okay, so the phylum Nidaria has been complete. Now let us talk about the other group, which is so basically previously we can say that both the Cnidarians and the Ctenophorans they together are being grouped under the phylum Coelenterata, but later they are being separated into two phylums because of their diversity from each other, and phylum Ctenophora. Phylum Nidaria becomes completely separated from phylum Ctenophora, but previously together they are called Coelenterata. So we already discussed about the first phylum that under the group Coelenterata, that is phylum Nidaria. Now let us talk about the second phylum in this particular group, which is phylum Ctenophora. Now, it was previously considered that Coelenterata, is a subdivision of the kingdom animals. It consists of two major phyla, Coelenterata and Ctenophora. Both are freshwater species as well. Both of them have a simple tissue organization with two layers of cells, and they do not have a coelom. They reproduce mainly by asexual reproduction by budding, but the key difference between Cnidaria and Ctenophora is that the Cnidaria show alteration of generation between medusa and polyps, while Ctenophora does not show the alteration of generation. Only medusa form is present. Also, unlike Cnidaria, with which they share several superficial similarities, they lack stinging cells. Instead, in order to capture prey, ctenophores possess sticky cells called coloblasts. In a few species, special cilia in the mouth are used for biting gelatinous prey. So now, in the modern biological aspect, Ctenophora is considered as a separate phylum under the kingdom Animalia. So these are the few differences between the Cnidaria and Ctenophora and why they are becoming separated, why they become separate phylums. So these are interesting. Like they are having a lot of superficial similarities. The most unique character that Cnidarians possess, which is lacking in the Ctenophora, that is the alteration of generation. Definitely, there are other characteristics which are other different points. But for me, this is one of the most important point that separates phylum Cnidaria from the phylum Ctenophora. The word Ctenophora comes from the Greek word tenos, means comb, and phoros means bearing. So comb bearing animals, comb kind of bearing another septa, the plates which are actually resembling combs. There are about 50 species, known species of Ctenophora, of which the most well known is Barrow species. So it's a very much small phylum considering the others. So let us first talk about the general characteristic points of this phylum. Definitely kingdom is Animalia, habitat, exclusively marine, no polymorphism, and no attached stages were found. Habits, they feed on plankton, swim by cilia. Power of regeneration is well marked. Bioluminescence, that means the property of living organisms to emit light, is well marked in ctenophores. Body shape, the body shape is transparent, gelatinous, pear-shaped, cylindrical, or flat, or ribbon-shaped. So among the shape, there are lots of varieties you could actually find. Fifth point is symmetry. They have a biradially symmetrical body along with an oral and aboral axis. Body surface, they have an external surface with comb-like 8 ciliary plates for locomotion, most definitely swimming, hence name comb jellies. Tentacles, they have a pair of long, solid, retractile tentacles. Complexity of organization, the body organization is cell tissue grade. germ layers, diploblastic, with the outer epidermis, inner gastrodermis, and medial and in middle, jelly-like mesoglia with scattered cells. Digestive system. The digestive system contains the mouth and then stomoderm, complex gastrovascular canals, and two aboral anal pores. They lack nematocysts but has a special adhesive and sensory cell called coloblasts or lasso cells for capturing the prey. They lack skeletal, circulatory, respiratory, and excretory systems. Nervous system is diffuse types, and the aboral end bears a sensory organ called statocyst, which is a sensory organ, which is a very basic sensory organ. They are monoecious, that means hermaphrodite. Development direct with characteristic. So they are actually having a larval form, sidipede larva. So the developmental process containing a larval form. Reproduction, they lack asexual mode of reproduction, and alteration of generation and regeneration or pedogenesis is common in them. So now you can also see that the reproduction process kind of, or the phase kind of being evolved, and there is lack of sexual reproduction, and the sexual reproduction started being replaced by the sexual mode of reproduction. So now let us talk about the classification scheme. Phylum Ctenophora can be subdivided into two classes, Tentaculata and Nuda. Class 1, Tentaculata, adults with long aboral tentacles. In some, larva has tentacles while adults have oral lobes. Mouth is narrow and pharynx is small. Example, Hormifora species. Second class is Nuda, no tentacles and oral lobes, body large, conical and laterally compressed, mouth large, and voluminous voluminous stomach, or the stomach is very big. Example, Barrows species. So let us stop at this point in this particular session. We will continue with the next set of classification and next set of phylums in our next session. So basically, in this particular class, we actually talked about three different phylums, starting from Porifera, then Nidaria, and then Ctenophora. So thank you for listening. So let me stop sharing the my slides. So thank you and goodbye. So see you in my next class.